Welcome to Can They Spider-Man, the series where I analyze artists that draw the famous webhead and whether they've been drawing him for fun or drawing him for years. In my personal opinion, I let you know whether or not they can Spider-Man. Today we're talking about the man who upgraded Spider-Man, John Romita Sr. In June of 1966, co-creator Steve Ditko would draw his last issue as the main artist on the Amazing Spider-Man title with issue number 38. After a little bit over 3 years of the same creative team, the Amazing Spider-Man title needed a new artist, and with the success of this young character, the new artist needed to be a hard hitter. Insert John Romita. Previously working on romance comics with the occasional superhero book, Romita almost left the comics industry, but was talked out of that idea by Stan Lee. Romita would work on some Marvel books like The Avengers, and eventually would land on Daredevil until he was brought on as the new main artist for the Amazing Spider-Man. Romita had two main stints with the character and worked on about 56 issues as the main penciler or main contributor to layouts. Starting with the beginning of his time with the character, Romita stated that he wanted to keep a level of consistency for fans, so he replicated a lot of Ditko's style and techniques, from using Ditko's usual 9-panel grid system and switching over from a brush to pencil. It wouldn't be until about a year in with the character that Stan Lee would encourage Romita to focus and go more into his style. Issue 47 is probably the most noticeable turning point for how Romita approached Spider-Man. Panels started getting bigger and everything seemed to pop more. From there, the action sequences in the ASM title were drastically turned up. Romita's brushwork was inspired by the comics he loved as a kid, and to me, that's the connection and the passion he has as a fan that made him such a superb creator. In my Steve Ditko video, I talked about how solid Ditko's illustrated storytelling was, and Romita would continue that solid work. However, in my opinion, he would perfect the storytelling for Amazing Spider-Man. As I mentioned, the action was on another level. Romita set up super engaging shots, making each panel flow perfectly with the next. It makes you want to turn as quickly to the next page, all while simultaneously admiring the amazing layouts. It feels faster, better paced all around, the hits seem harder, and you can feel the onomatopoeia. The way he would set up his action shots, Romita's art made fights with common thugs feel as exciting as when Spider-Man was fighting his greatest villains. Speaking of villains, Romita's take on Spidey's classic rogues like Green Goblin, Vulture, Kraven, Doc Ock, and many others are so amazing that when people think about these characters in a classic sense, they're more than likely thinking of Romita's artwork. But along with knocking it out of the park with his renditions of these already established and classic Spider-Man rogue villains, Romita was also responsible for new additions like the Kingpin, Rhino, Shocker, and even anti-hero Punisher. Similar to Ditko, all of these new creations by Romita are timeless and super recognizable to this day. But the bad guys aren't the only part of Spidey's cast that Romita absolutely nails. As who could forget one of the most iconic character intros like Mary Jane Watson's "You Hit the Jackpot, Tiger," and along with the fun, stunning redhead, Romita gave us the definitive looks of the gentle and beautiful Gwen Stacy. All those years on those romance comics really paid off, as even Peter Parker is far more handsome in this era of Spider-Man. Alright, we talked about visual storytelling, the updated rogue and cast looks, as well as new additions. But what about Spider-Man? Although on a surface level it might not seem like it, Romita is such a drastic shift for the character of Spider-Man because, similar to the story itself, there's a maturing factor that goes into this era. Peter is now 18 to 19 years old, is out of high school, in college, has a cast of friends. He's even got his own apartment with roommate Harry Osborn, and to top it off, he even has a cool motorcycle. It really is the first huge step forward for the character, and Romita's artwork perfectly displays that. As Spider-Man, he appears far more heroic than years past. A character that, when put side to side with other famous Marvel superheroes, he doesn't look so out of place anymore. By Romita's second stint with the character, he would go even further with his own style / brush techniques, and Romita himself has said that that was some of his most proud work. It was Romita's heroic makeover for Spider-Man that really propelled him into super superstar status. Yes, Spider-Man was popular out the gate, but it was during Romita's time with the character that he became Marvel's #1 title, eventually surpassing the very popular and famous Fantastic Four, Marvel's first family. Romita's design was also plastered all over merchandise. Spider-Man was mainstream, and the iconic Romita artwork was on lunchboxes, cups, calendars, clothing, even toilet paper at one point. This version of Spider-Man was the face of Marvel, and the man behind the pen was Romita Sr. Some big highlights for Romita's time with the character are The Amazing Spider-Man issue 50. With the Spider-Man No More storyline, this gives us one of the most illustrious comic book panels of all time. Another personal highlight is issue 67. This is an action-packed Spidey v Mysterio comic that has some of the most creative visuals for the character, and with dynamic panel work, this issue will have you at the edge of your seat. Similarly in action, Romita's spectacular Spider-Man, The Goblin Lives, is an enthralling magazine that gives you Spidey glamour shots with Goblin action sequences that puts others to shame. And lastly, you can't talk about Romita's Spider-Man without talking about his daily strips. To me, this further highlights his storytelling abilities, as Romita puts on a great display in an even shorter format. These strips would either leave readers heavily satisfied or once again super at the edge of their seats with crazy cliffhangers that made them rushing to the next newsstands. And with no color in these newspaper strips, you really get to appreciate the pencil work along with the black brush techniques that Romita would go on to make famous. In conclusion, Romita is one of the most recognizable Spider-Man artists, to the extent that even if people don't know the man, they definitely know his work. He's largely responsible for the first big leap in Spider-Man's character, propelling him to superstar status. Undoubtedly, Romita Sr. is the definitive Spider-Man artist. He doesn't have to be your favorite, he doesn't have to be the best, but he's the definitive. But what do you guys think? Are you a fan of John Romita? Have you checked out any of his comics? If you do want to check out any of John Romita's work, please consider checking out organic priced books. And if you use my discount codes, you're saving even more money. So if you want to support the channel, definitely do that. And also, please subscribe. Again, I appreciate all of your time. Thanks so much for watching, and subscribe for more.